Well, hey, McFly subscribers. So today, this is what I'm tying. And this is a pattern I came up with, and it's called the McCraw. And so it's a little crayfish. It's almost all feathers, and it works quite well. And I'm selling these, so I've got 5 of these that are being sold to a customer. Sorry, I almost knocked over something. So we just we're starting with this now. Usually I use I really like resin hooks, but they don't have a long shank jigged hook like this. So I'm using the Firehole Sticks 523, which is a long jig hook. Okay, and I use size 8. And then, so I believe they sell some brown ones over at Risen. I don't have them right now, but these work really well. The Almond Joy from Firehole Sticks. And this is the 4.5 millimeter. You could get away with 4 millimeter, I think, on this. Okay, it just depends on how heavy you want it. But these sink really well, and they sit, you know, on the bottom. And a lot of times they'll sit up like that on the bottom, and then they'll kind of slowly float to the bottom like this. And then when you pull on it, it pops it up. So it'll be like this, and then it'll pop it up like this when you strip it, because of the, you know, and it has some really good motion, and the fish go crazy for it. They really do like it. So you put the bead on. The easiest way, always, like I've said before, is just put the bead in your hand and then bring the hook point to the bead. And then you want to make sure with these jig hooks that the bead is positioned correctly. You can see at the top, most of the beads have a square and more rounded. This one is both squared, but there is a right way. See how that's sitting properly? Versus here, it's not. So you want to do it this way. And then for thread, I've got Viva 6/0 in brown. Okay, and you can tie these in any color. I tie them in purple and black a lot too. But you just start your thread up by the bead, and you want to, I just don't have the strength yet, guys. Sorry. If you're not following, I had surgery, as you can see here on both hands. I've got a carpal tunnel, or I had carpal tunnel, and they did surgery both hands, and I just don't have the strength that I used to. So, but it'll come back. But anyway, you just want to build a little thread dam here, and that'll kind of lock that into place. You want to come down slightly into the bend here, like so, and then come back up so it is right at the beginning stage of the bend. So next you want crystal flash and gold. Okay, so I've got 2 strands of regular crystal flash, and you want this to be about 1.5 times the hook shank length. Okay, so that's going to be right about there, roughly. 2 or 3 wraps to lock it into place, and then you can just cut this off, and just somewhere back here. The exact length doesn't really matter. I like to go kind of close up to the bead here, or at least where I start that little bump, just so it leaves a nice even taper. So next I've got these silly legs, orange barred. Okay, and they're nymph, so they're small. The smaller nymph silly legs, and they're pretty long. Okay, so what I do is I just double them up by aligning the tips like this, and then I cut that. So now I've got the perfect length, and this comes out actually very exact. I mean, you might have to trim them just slightly, but then we just double it up once again, put that right on top. And your back, by the way, you want to go back actually a wrap or 2, okay, because that's going to help you in a second. So 1 or 2 wraps to hold it on, and then split this like so, and bring these out, and then wrap up. So that way they're on either side, and kind of helps get these to be angled outward. Okay, and they're rubber, so they're going to want to splay out anyway with a tight wrap. So you don't have to do any kind of little thread bump or anything like that with them. I used to do that, and it's just not needed. So next, I've got this UV2 Diamond Bright, and I'm using the root beer color, which is kind of like an orangey. It doesn't really look like root beer to me. It looks more like orange, but that's what color they call it, and I like it. It works well. You just take a little bit, and we're going to dub some on to the thread. You want this fairly compact. You don't have to go super super tight with your dubbing noodle. Okay, but fairly compact. And then we're just going to wind this on as like a little bump here. You'll see why in a second. You want to end right behind it. Next, I got this whiting chickaboo, and this is the brown barb, or what do they call it? Yeah, grizzly brown. Okay, so grizzly. This one's dyed brown. It's a great color for crayfish, but I've done these, like I said, in black and purple, and I find the black and purple, if I use a black claw, that works pretty well. So what I do is I pull off two, and you can tell that there's a little curve in them. By the way, I wet it. I find that's easier for tying, but you can tell there's a curve, and you want that curve to be angled out. And we're just going to help, it's going to help splay that outward. And we're going to tie this in, so it is roughly about a hook shank length. Okay, and right behind that dubbing ball, see how that kind of splays that outward? So 2 wraps. We're going to angle this up just a little bit because you want that to be angled up. All right, and then I'm going to take another one. Again, wetting it really helps. Make sure that curve is angled out, and we're just going to align the tips of these two like so, and then tie that in. Make sure it's positioned correctly. Now, both claws don't have to be exactly the same length. I mean, not to a T, but try to get it close, and that's pretty darn close. Maybe a little off, but that's okay. Nature is never perfect. So now we're going to take this, we're going to cut this off about to the same, right to where that little thread bump is. We're just going to wind this up and kind of clean up this section a little bit. It's going to be messy, and that's okay. We're going to fix that in a minute. You know what? I'm going to wind this back just slightly to really ensure that this splays out. There you go. So that's right into that dubbing ball there, and that really kind of, as you can see, splays that out quite a bit. Okay. So then I'm going to bring this up to right about there because it makes this next step easier. All right, next I've got this. It's called Swiss straw, and that comes in like a little thing like this, and it's enough for quite a few flies, and you're not using a lot of it. And I find this works really well. I used to tie these with, what do they call it? It's more of a plastic material, bug back or something like that. But I find this, I like the look of this a lot better. So anyway, so you're catching it back here because it's really tough to catch it right up front here. Boy, my voice cracked, didn't it? Really tough to catch it up front. So I find if I catch it back here, plus it gives a nice taper. But you're gonna want to work this back as far as you can get it. And I find even if I go like that, right up on the hook, it helps keep it straight up and down because you don't want this angled to the side too much. There we go. There we go. And you can actually check it like this to see if that's right on top, which that is. And then let's pull that back. If you got a clip, you could clip this back. It's out of your way. And then next I've got this. It's a Brahma pelt. So it comes with chickaboo, which you could actually use for the claws if you wanted, but I like this barb a little better. But it's a brown Brahma pelt, basically a saddle with chickaboo is what it's called. And so we're going to pull off 2 feathers. Okay, so we're going to pull, it's kind of hard to do on this really tight camera, but one a little further up where it's a little bit longer fibers, and then one a little closer to the base of the pelt where it is finer fibers. We're going to start with the finer fiber one, and we're just basically pulling off all the fuzzies. Okay, so you've got this stuff. You just want to pull off all the fuzzies. Now this one has a little bit of a curve to the feather. It grew funky. That's okay. You can see it's kind of wanting to twist. That's okay. we should be good. And then you just want to take the tip, pinch the tip, and then stroke back the fibers to give yourself a little tie-in point, like so. You could clip most of that off. So let's turn this back around. We're going to tie this in. Like I said, you could clip that off to make it a little smaller. I find it's not needed. And we're just going to bring this up. You know, it doesn't have to be all the way to the front because we're not going to utilize the whole thing. Now I like these little plier, plunger style hackle plier things. And we're just going to grab the stem and then stroke all the fibers rearward. And we're going to start winding this up. So you want 1 or 2 good wraps right at the head, or sorry, at the base there. And then you can start doing a little bit more of an open spiral wrap. Oh shoot, sorry guys, hold on. Let's put that aside for a second. Usually, it's been a while since I've tied these. Okay, let's grab some more of that same sparkle dubbing. We're just gonna dub a fairly thin noodle. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be super tight, but you don't need a lot of it. Just enough to give a covering. So we're gonna bring this back. Sorry guys, I messed up on that. All right. So we're just covering this all. Okay. Now, let's grab this. And then we're gonna start wrapping it the same way. So 2 right at the 1 or 2 wraps right there. And then you can start more the open spiral kind of wraps. What we're doing, we're just creating legs now. Okay, and this is only going to go halfway. And we're going to capture it. 2 wraps, and then pull it back like so, and then wrap back up on top. 2 or 3 wraps, and then you can just snap that off. Makes it a little easier. So I wrap back up a little bit like that. We're going to take that other feather. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to pull off all the fuzzies. I'm going to pinch that tip and stroke back the fibers. And on this one, because it is closer up to the top, you don't want to have it go over the beads, so I do clip that off. All right, and then we're just gonna touch more of this sparkle dubbing just to make it look a little better. This is not a mandatory step. You don't have to do the sparkle dubbing. It would be just fine, probably fish just as well, but I like the look, so we're just gonna continue that open spiral kind of wrap, stroking the fibers back. All right, and once you reach the head, you just want to try to end as close to the head as possible, or close to the bead. Make a couple wraps. You can pull everything rearward, like so. Wrap back up on it. Oh, it didn't snap that time. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It does make it easier so you don't have to clip it, but clipping it is not a problem. And then we're going to turn this right side up. I'll turn it in a little bit so you guys can see better. And I'm going to take a bodkin, and we are, it might be a little easier if we brush this out. So a lot of times I'll brush this out, back, forward, side to side, whatever, get it all brushed out so there's no trap fibers. And then we can come in like so and just separate that slightly. Just kind of get these worked towards each side, like so. Helps to flatten it with your thumb if you need. And then we're going to pull this up over. Sometimes you have to Use your bodkin a little bit. So now that's up over. And I find that if I just push it like so into like the center, and that captures it. See how it's captured? That really helps because it's thin stuff. It's not super, it's pretty fragile. So let's pull all the fibers rearward like so, but that'll hold it so that way it doesn't want to spin. So we're just going to make 2 or 3 tight wraps right up by the head. We'll pull this rearward. Oh, I have a trapped. That's okay, just pull that off. You got plenty of fibers. We're going to pull it up and back and then wrap back over it like so. Maybe one more. And we're going to get in. And by the way, these are Risen's scissors and they're mitten scissors, but they've got such a fine tip. It really helps. It's really nice scissors and they're great price too. But if you clip it off super close so it's not a big tag end sticking out. And we'll cover that right now with a little more of this sparkle dubbing. You don't have to use sparkly dubbing. You can use something else. Antron works really well. It just depends on what you're looking for. Just some kind of dubbing to cover up any blemishes. Create like a nice little collar. And then we're just gonna whip finish. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's do a 6-turn whip finish. Pretty heavy whip finish because, and then we'll pull it down, by the way, and we want to clip it off at the bottom. And you'll see why in a second. So now the tying portion's done. We turn this upside down. We're just going to brush all this out, and then we're going to try to work this to where this sits flat, right? So we're going to work this outward, side to side. I got one little pesky fiber that just wants to do its own thing, and that'll happen. There we go. So that you can see that's going to be a little more flat, and just kind of push it down with your thumb, get that worked out flat. I've got a little trick here. So I used to use a different kind of head cement for this, which I usually use for anything with a dubbing head there, but I found that this Solarez Ultra Thin is really beneficial. So we're just going to paint right along there, and then you can see just at the back of the whip finish. And what that's going to do is when we cure this, it's going to actually ensure that those fibers stay down and flat. So that's going to help it sit better. You can see no matter what you do, they'll pull up like that, but it creates a space there. So now when this is sitting on the bottom, it's going to sit super nice. It's not going to want to roll too much on you. It'll sit nice and flat, and it gives a really nice crayfish profile. And there's that. So that was basically Solarez Ultra Thin, or bone dry they call it, but it has a nice little handy paintbrush, and when you cure it with this UV light, it cures it hard. So it's really nice. But there we go. If you haven't checked out my sponsor, which is Risen Fly, they make some really good stuff. Like I said, I was using their scissors today. Really good scissors, okay? Everything they make is really high quality, but good price for what they are. Everything they sell. So they have rods, reels, some fly tying materials, really good hooks. And in fact, let me see if I've got, here's some hooks of theirs. It's also a jig hook. It's just a little bit shorter shank, so it's great for some other flies. But they're really good price and super high quality hooks. These are barbless, okay? But they sell more than just jig hooks, everything. They sell rods, reels, anything you need for fly fishing. It's all really good price. It's just hard to beat them. So definitely check them out. Go to www.risenfly.com and type in McFly at checkout, and they're offering 15% off of anything you buy in their shop, which is going to be really helpful because they've got some rods, for instance, that are $100. Well, $119, and so after the discount, it makes them about $100. And I'm telling you, they're some of the best rods I've ever fished. They're really good, but super, super great company. Great customer service, really good warranty on everything that they sell. So definitely check them out. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit that like button if you don't mind. It helps me out and helps the channel out. But yeah, as you can see, once these dry, so this is the first one I tied here on camera, before the camera, you can see that once this dries, these flare out quite nice. It looks really good. It's a nice little, almost like a woolly bugger kind of style. I would say you can fish it like a jigged woolly bugger, but they sit on the bottom real nice. They look like crayfish, and they're just really good flies. I've had really good luck with them, so definitely check this out. By the way, these are being sold by a company called Yellowstone Fly Goods. So they took a couple of my patterns, this one included, and they're selling to fly shops all across America. So if you haven't seen these in your fly shop, let your fly shop owner know, or someone at the fly shop, and say, listen, there's a fly called the McCraw. Okay, it's like Marty McFly. Let's call it Marty McCraw or whatever. My channel is McFly, so we'll call it the McCraw is what I call it. And let them know and say I want to get some McCraws. So it comes in this size. It also comes in a micro, which actually the micro size would be with this hook because it's a little shorter shank. Okay, but both are really good. One is more of like a nymphing style, but this one's more of like a streamer style. But they're really good flies, so definitely check them out. Ask for them. It helps me out. I get a little bit of a commission from all of them sold, so it definitely helps me out if they, more fly shops carry them. But let them know and tell them it's with Yellowstone Fly Goods is the company that took these. And so they're selling them. They're just great quality flies. I like them. I think they tie, they're all tied in America. It's not like overseas. So good quality and great prices, I think, for what they offer to the fly shops. So most fly shops are happy to take them. If they haven't worked with Yellowstone before, just let them know. I think it's pretty easy to have them sign up and get these flies in your fly shop. You can buy them from me too. I sell them, which I'm doing right now, but pretty soon they'll be at your fly shop, hopefully. So anyway, I will see you guys in the next video. Now you go catch some fish.